you want to. I don't care if you're going to be a dork. Whew. It's nice and toasty in here right now. No, that's not how we spell it. Yeah, same thing. Whatever. Alrighty, so the mad adventures, the computers rebooting themselves, digestive ailments kicking in and knocking me out. Next day, I actually fell asleep. I think it was yesterday. I actually got up, made breakfast, did a little working, started to get ready for a few other things, came in here, sat down on the bed with the laptop to work on some stuff, and promptly woke up several hours later, not realizing that I had apparently just gotten a second day's sleep. My brain just said, nope, we're done. We're completely done. And just, boom, I was gone. I woke up way past the time where I should have been doing things. That one snuck up on me and I never saw it coming. And then, how many days has it been? I think I missed one night, right? Could have been multiple nights. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's happened. Yeah, when you got some downtime and your body says we're going to use it however it wants to, that just kind of happens. Where are all my notes and everything that I'm supposed to be working on? Don't know. I've been working on a computer this afternoon on completely unrelated projects and ran some errands to see if I could do okay, it was just one night. That's good. I ran some errands today to get the brakes, to replace my own brakes, because the place where I was going to get my car stuff done, they're like, it's $280 some odd to replace brake pads. Like, to get it to pass inspection, one of the brake pads is a little too worn. So they want to charge $280 something to replace both back pads and rotors. Like, the rotors don't need to be changed. They're fine. If they're not broken enough to make it so that it won't pass inspection, then they're fine the way they are. Just put new pads on it, pass it in inspection, and let's move on. But yeah, so they made that more difficult than it needs to be. So I went and got some brake pads today, and I'm going to work with a friend tomorrow and see if I can swap out my own brake pads, get it to pass inspection, and then just move on with things. That was a chunk of this afternoon to try to sort, because apparently the people who tried to inspect it and said it didn't pass because one of the pads was worn on one side but not the other, they put the note down as failed foot brake or something like that. And I guess to people who work in the area of auto parts, that's the parking brake and not the actual rear brakes. So somewhere in that mess, somebody's putting down notes wrong. But whatever. I'm going to spend a few hours tomorrow resolving the brakes and see about getting it inspected and move on. Put that whole mess behind me and get on with the life. But in the meantime, I had digestive upset for the last night I was up. I think I posted that video. I went live, did the video, clocked out a little bit early just because my body just really wasn't up to it, and realized as I was doing that I think I set it to private, so I made it public afterwards. And then, yeah, whatever happened after that, I can't remember. I was doing some stuff on the computer here for tracking down some old and some new TV programs, usually anthology series. So the one that I watched on Viewsday was the Black Mirror, and there were a few others that there was one called Metal Hurlant, which is based off of the old heavy metal graphic novel magazine. And I had heard about that one a while back and been curious about seeing it, and then promptly forgot its name and that it existed. And then there's the something robots, Love, Death, and Robots, or something like that, which was a mini series of animated science fiction, I think. Here, let's see if I can pull up my Netflix. No, this isn't a riddle. My list on Netflix. So I did find a few other things like Brain Games and Velvet Buzzsaw, which is a shock horror movie that I'm curious about. I've got Umbrella Academy to look up. I haven't seen Stranger Things past the first season, so I'm kind of curious about that. Love, Death, and Robots, Black Mirror. Russian Doll was one that seemed kind of curious to me. And then there's a computer animated TV series called Three Below, which sounded kind of weird and interesting, so I'll take a look. Lost in Space, Limitless. Altered Carbon is another science fiction series that I was interested in. And let's see, the Voltron series looked interesting. Sense8 was another one, and Maniac is a mini series, a limited series. I'm not sure what that's. I remember seeing some things about that, but not knowing what to expect. Some Star Trek stuff. There's something called, I think it's Ascension. Yeah. Yep, Ascension. Looks like a TV series I've never heard of. And a few movies. The Star Trek the Animated Series, I'm kind of curious about. But some of that also reminded me of a few other series that are not on Netflix that I had to look up and see if I could dig up some connection to, so I could track some of them down. Part of this is just out of wanting to see them, but there's also a part of them that can help inform ideas about story concepts that you can rework and refigure out for a new format. So yeah, that's not super helpful. Come on, guys, show me my list. Nope, that's not how we do that. All right, fine. We're going to be hard. There we go. All right, so I have not seen any of Star Trek Discovery, but I have also in here Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, Farscape. There's something called Star Hike, and this is where it started to get really, really fun. Like bizarre science fiction series with actually some somewhat well-known actors in them, but like that went nowhere and did nothing. And so Star Hike, Captain Scarlet, Silent Eye, Welcome to the Paradox. I've never heard of any of these. And I'm kind of curious to see them. I have a few others in here, like The Outer Limits, The Boys, Good Omens. While I was wandering through some of these, okay, so I've got Warehouse 13, Defiance, Carnival, or is it Carnival? Carnival. But while I was wandering through there, I found a few others that I remember being on TV at some point, and it stirred some memories of some things that I missed. Yeah, Twilight Zone and Outer Limits are on there. Both the new and the old for each. But there was a TV series called Eureka years ago, and that has some potentials for stirring up story ideas. And then there was a TV series I used to watch when I was younger called The Pretender. And that series is hard to find. There's also another series where I had a friend years ago who it's the guy in the last taste test video I uploaded. He had access to some download sites where you could find TV series that you can't get anymore. And one of them was a series called, I can't even remember what the name of it was. It had the main character was a guy, a somewhat well-known actor, who he played this mysterious character who people would contact when all other avenues of opportunity were closed to them to get what they need. I think it's like Vengeance Inc. or something like that. That's not quite right. That might be a similar series that came along later. But anyway, this guy, he's like a nobody. Nobody knows him except for if you need him, you're able to contact him. And he will do what you need him to do in his way. So you need revenge, you need a crime solved, you need escape from something. He'll do what you need to do. He'll do it in the way that he thinks it should be done. And then at the end of that, you have two options. You pay him $1 million, or you owe him a favor. And so every episode is him calling in some of those favors that people owe him and doing some truly weird mercenary kind of work, usually to right a wrong. And so it's sort of like a very interesting series. And I think it's the copies I got from my friend are on a hard drive somewhere. I have to dig the hard drive out or see if I can salvage the computer it's in, because that computer broke a bit. But I kind of want to watch that series again because it had some interesting ways of looking at stories that are not quite the usual whodunit. They're not the standard procedural. They're not like a NCIS or a CSI. So that's one of the ones. The Pretender is one that I remember watching, and that seems like it'll have a fair number of interesting story ideas. Some of them whodunits, and some of them are like, I think the reason I like some of these ideas are they're sort of like a hero for hire. You know, you're a wandering hero who helps out those in need. And that's a really good format for pulp science fiction style, ray gun gothic style stories of a wandering space hero encountering somebody in need of help and doing something to help them. It's a format we don't have a lot of content for in the more modern time. This sort of wandering hero story doesn't happen. We just don't have that as much. And there's another series that was sort of like this. It was called John Doe that I watched, and I think it only had one season. And John Doe was about a guy who woke up with amnesia and a strange scar on his body and this unusual ability to know everything up until the point of where he woke up, I think. So like you could ask him, how many laundromats are there in the tri-state area? And he could tell you instantly the number of them that are there. But he can't tell you who he is or where he came from. And he can't tell you anything that's happened since he woke up. Like he can know, like, oh yeah, I got the newspaper this morning, and my sidekick over here, she's got classes tomorrow morning. He knows that, but it's more along the lines of somebody downloaded the entire information about the universe into his brain at the moment he woke up. And then everything else he knows past that point is just what you would know if you're a normal person. And so, I mean, he even has the original code for MS-DOS in binary memorized. And so it's just sort of like he's got an absolute fountain of information in his head. And he sort of sets himself up as a private investigator to help people. And he uses his knowledge to figure out solutions to their problems. So I really, really enjoyed that series. In that series, they have like an embedded background conspiracy theory going on in the background. And I think it was canceled after one season. But the thing that also happened was they sort of took this idea and they kind of rebooted it a few years ago. They created a TV series called Blind Spot. And they had the young actress who I can't remember her name. She is the new John Doe in that case. But instead of having a scar and a mysterious thing going on there, she has tattoos all over her body, which supposedly are clues to crimes that haven't happened yet. And there will be an inciting incident that indicates which of the tattoos to be focusing on. And I guess it has a resolution that they have to figure out. And she doesn't remember who she is. She just knows she has the tattoos. And so, like, I'm kind of curious about this series. It looks very much like a John Doe story idea with a new twist and gender switch. So I'm kind of curious about that one. And then Metal Hurlant. A couple of the classic sci-fi series that I'm a fan of, like Babylon 5 and Star Trek. Most of the Star Trek series. I think I mentioned Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, Farscape. And then there's Earth Final Conflict is one that I remember watching years ago. And I'm hoping there's something interesting both in Black Mirror and Metal Hurlant. I'm really kind of curious about Metal Hurlant. Star Hike, I think, is going to be hilariously bad. And I'm pretty sure Captain Scarlet's going to be bad. I have no idea what Silent Eye or Welcome to the Paradox are going to be like. There was something called Space Cop that looked oh so hilariously bad. And oh my goodness, it was so cheesy looking. I may just watch some of them for the fun of it. And then there's a series of sort of a superhero series that came out years ago. I watched some of it. It was called Nightman. And it wasn't a particularly good series, and it didn't last very long, I don't think. I think it had 1 or 2 seasons, maybe 3, which is funny because it certainly lasted longer than some other things. And I do feel like it had enough of that sort of pulpy hero story style that I could sort of rip apart some of those stories for inspiration. Trying to think of some of the other things. Like I was having a blast going through some of these, and admittedly, while I was not feeling well and not really up to doing some work, I popped on a couple of stupid, cheesy movies that I watched, and had a little bit of fun with, and found a few movies that I had forgotten existed. And so I've got a lot of stuff here, probably way more than I can do for Views Day night alone. And other than that, I have the movie review that I do each month. So each month there's 5 to 6 movie-based things that I might do. But if I'm going to do things like episodes of Black Mirror or episodes of Metal Hurlant, that's going to take some time. So I've got a backlog that I can play with. So I've been sort of organizing some of that in the downtime that I went through. But I am sort of itching to watch some of this stuff. And some of it's like not worthy of spending the time to review. Like I'm looking at my movie reviews here and my movie lists, and I don't know that I would review everything on here, especially not all the series. There's also the Views Day is just viewing it and reacting to it. The rate, review, and creative prompts based off of some works that I do once a month. I feel like some of these are just going to have to not be part of that, and I'm going to watch it in my spare time, which is weird because when I'm not doing reactions and watchings for this channel, I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch a lot of movies. Yeah, I mean, I'm debating about that. I think I watched the first Black Mirror. I may switch over to the next Views Day being the first episode of Metal Hurlant and react to that, and then sort of do a reach out to see if anybody wants me to react to specific episodes of series. Otherwise, I may just watch. Like if somebody really wanted to see me react to the second episode of Black Mirror, then I would watch it on camera. Otherwise, I'll just watch it in the intervening time and just move on. So that's, I think, but there are things on here that are not series that would be fun to do a reaction to, or maybe even generate creative prompts from. There's a movie, it looks like it's called Other Life. It's a science fiction. I haven't seen Wreck-It Ralph 2. I may not watch that one as a reaction. I Am Mother, Umbrella Academy, The Boys, Love, Death, Robots. I still want to go back and watch more of Jessica Jones and some of the Marvel TV series. I haven't seen any of Supergirl. I have not watched any of the DC Superhero Universe TV programs. I want to watch Russian Doll. And that's a series of how many episodes? I'm not sure. And then I think there was a movie. Yeah, there was a movie called Rim of the World that I saw previews for, and then nothing. I heard nothing about it. I'm kind of curious to watch that one. Limitless, the movie I watched and enjoyed. Limitless, the TV series, I have not seen or heard anything about. The Lost in Space reboot TV series that they did, haven't seen any of that. There's the OA, which I have not seen anything for. The movie Chappie, Sense8, Her, Transcendence. I've heard mixed things about Cloud Atlas, and I'm curious enough to give it a try. And then there's another one on this list that I have here that's it's The Men Who Stare at Goats. And I kind of remember the preview for that. And it's clearly a comedy about like psychic warfare research being done in early 50s, 60s, I think. And then there's Antonio Banderas science fiction robot movie called Automata. And then there's some international movies or series, actually. Looks like this one. This one's called Jinn, and it looks like it's out of the Middle East, but it looks like it was dubbed. So I'm kind of curious about that one. There's the Ascension, was a series, like it has one season, and it's a science fiction series. And then there's Beyond, which is a movie. And like I've never heard of some of these, and I'm just super curious about them. I just don't know whether or not to do them as a views day or watch and create prompts inspired by kind of thing. There's also, let's see, what do I got in Prime? And then there's certain things I want to track down, and they're harder to find. I don't know that I'll do a reaction to episodes of like Farscape. It's a series I watched a lot of. I've already seen it, so there's no reaction necessary for that. And doing review and rate for that, and then prompts inspired by that, I think that's a little too much, unless somebody wants me to do a master list of break a whole season down of Babylon 5 or Farscape. Just break a whole season down and react, review, and rate them, rate and sort the best episodes. I could do something like that. That would be totally worth it, I think. But I think right now there's enough already that I have no need to hurry into that. Captain Scarlet is 2 seasons of a computer animated science fiction something or other. Star Hike Silent Eye is a season. So and Welcome to Paradox is a season. So some of these have like a full-blown season. I will say one of my all-time favorites, it was kind of cool to find again, was Charlie Jade. That's a joint South African and Canadian science fiction series that I found on Hulu years ago when Hulu was still free to view stuff on, which it's not anymore. So I'm not getting a Hulu membership. I'm not paying $6 a month to watch videos on Hulu. I don't know that, like, I can't even see if they've got anything that makes it worth it for me to do that. And looking at things coming out in the near future, Disney Plus has some Star Wars TV series and some, I think, Marvel stuff that uh, I may want to see. And if I spend anything on a series, like a subscription thing, I would bet that's probably the best choice. Although I did see the previews for the new Picard TV series. Kind of want to see that too. But I don't want to pay $6 for Disney Plus and whatever Picard's on and pay my Amazon Prime and pay my Netflix. I'm not paying for 4 or 5 different services. So I'll just have to figure out which one makes the most sense. But yeah, so and Charlie Jade was a good one. It's actually available on Amazon Prime. So if you wanted to check it out. Yeah. And the thing is, like, what I've done for some of, like, when I watched some of the Marvel movies for Tuesday night for that stint before the Avengers movie came out, I can find them on YouTube and do a search for them on YouTube, and the movie will come up and you can purchase it with like a PayPal account. And so I paid like $3 a movie for a few movies on YouTube. And so instead of subscribing to a service, if I can just pay $3, $4 on YouTube for the movie once, I'll do that. I think this coming up war between viewing services, I have zero interest in spending, 30 or $40 for 5 different services to watch 1 or 2 programs per service. Nope. Just, if you could have the best TV series, if that's the only thing you've got that I want to see, I'm not spending the $6 to $8 for your service to watch it. Not interested. I'm not going to be nickel and dimed for everything I'm curious about. I've got plenty of other things I can watch. But yeah. So I've got a lot of series, and what I might actually do is go through, and I've sort of pulled up. It's really nice to be able to go onto like Wikipedia and pull up the different seasons and the different episodes of TV series and just see a summary of what the episode is about. And just based off of that summary, come up with a short story that you can write based off of those summaries. And change the setting, change the characters, change the villain. And I mean, it's a new story at that point. Like, most of these things are based off of some Sherlock Holmes style story, or so classic TV program series. And it's a lot of them look very similar when you can break them down into a formula. And so it's kind of nice to be able to go onto like Wikipedia and pull up the episode summaries of 6 or 7 different TV series and see, like, okay, this episode sounds like this in this other series episode. And then say, like, okay, start sorting them into batches and say, like, oh, this is story type A, story type C, story type F. And then really just break down what they all have in common, and then make a simple template, a formula for that type of story. And doing that, you can generate like 6 or 7 templates for stories. Public domain books, I mean, honestly, like, I think the last time I went through Project Gutenberg for a book was to find a nice copy of 1001 Tales of Arabian Nights, because I remember that fondly from when I was younger. And that sort of thing, I think for me, the hidden treasure is to go into thrift stores and find the year's best science fiction of such and such a year, and find anthology series where people write like a short story for science fiction that's not great, and look at that story and go like, but it has a gem of an idea in it, and see if I could build a better story around the ideas they had. To me, that's more fun. um, I think there is a threshold for me, and I don't want to sound like a bit of a young one snob, but I I struggle a little bit when I look at stuff by like Asimov, because his stories do have a bit of a pulpiness to them, but they're not as action pulp as, say, like a Indiana Jones story or a Buck Rogers story is usually more action adventure. Asimov's is a little bit more like puzzle solving, but it's puzzle solving with like a very dated time frame. And so like the character arcs, the character development, and the character types are very 1950s and 60s. And the puzzles to be solved oftentimes use antiquated understanding of the science fiction. And so it's very easy to quickly hit a point where like there's not a lot usable for a believable or fun story right now. They're good as nostalgia science fiction. They're good as history of science fiction, and they have some interesting ideas to them. But I find myself struggling when looking at some of the older. Now, I might be able to have some steampunk fun with like a Jules Verne kind of story, and those would probably be in public domain. I'm not sure if Wonderland's made it into public domain. I think Peter Pan has. Peter Pan should be public domain. And so Neverland, possibly Wizard of Oz. What was the other one? Like some of those are, like Bram Stoker's Dracula would probably be public domain. But like I'm thinking of like what else would there be in the public domain that is worth pursuing. Now, in books, there may be some stuff. I think public domain for books is like the cutoff right now is the 30s, maybe early 40s by now, but they keep extending copyright and stuff like that, so that stuff that should be entering the public domain just isn't entering the public domain, and so time just keeps stretching and we still don't get any new stuff. But some of the older stuff, Frankenstein, Dracula, Grimm's fairy tales, and like Grimm's is a really good source of folklore for fantasy. Getting into the realm of science fiction, you start to get a much more narrow opportunity, because like I said, I still think it's like 1930s, 1940s is public domain, and if it's not that time frame, it's not there yet. Yeah, so like Tales of Arabian Nights, like one of the things you can do is you can take a thing like Tales of Arabian Nights, break down the stories for the key moments, and then translate them over into science fiction. So I would do things like that. I could get into doing some things like that. I'm not sure what the options are out there, and I haven't really looked. Um, Mainly because like I don't have to spend like for what it would cost me to sign up for Hulu or any of these movie services. I can go to a thrift store and buy 6 or 7 books full of short stories, and there are at least 12 short stories per book. Like I'm in a pile of stories at that point. I'm not short of inspirational material. So I haven't really resorted to public domain stuff. And I think one of the things I keep debating about in the recent future for this channel is I do a fair amount of delving into books that are older. Like the next book on my list, I think, is probably going to be a 1980s cyberpunk story kind of thing. And uh, I don't know that there's an audience out there watching to hear that review. And so I've been debating, like, do I want to do things on that? Like, I do. I kind of want to read those. But every now and then, I feel like I need to throw a bone out there to catch people. Like, I haven't done a review for Harry Potter, but there are so many fans of Harry Potter out there that if I did a video, I'm bound to catch young authors who are interested in writing ideas inspired by the writings of J.K. Rowling. I want to bring those people into the fold and share ideas with them. And then once they're in and participating, I can introduce them to things that they've probably never heard of. I can bring them back into discussions about William Gibson's work or uh, what's Spider Robinson, Larry Niven. These are people that these younger readers have never heard of, but would potentially be of interest or value to them. And they're ones I'm fascinated by and enjoy greatly. So being able to share that with them, I want to be able to do that. But I kind of need to do something every now and then that catches the what's going on right now. So like I'm thinking about like the movies that I review. Some of these on my list here, I might review those. But I also should probably go review something that shows up in the theater. So I need to go to the theater and review some of the new upcoming movies in the next few weeks or next few months. And then I need to think about the new books and see what books people are talking about in certain genres and read and review it. And yeah, it sort of feels like, you know, tailoring what I'm doing to trends, but it's not really quite that way. I think I'm just thinking about what's the best way to do that, and I'm wondering if like I usually try each year in October to do a month where I do I do a certain amount of stuff each week. So I do daily episodes of reviews. So it's instead of doing one book a month, in November, I try to do things like 5 short stories or 7 short stories in a week. I might end up doing something like reading 7 things in a week watching 7 movies in a week. And then I might just do movies and writing for November, so I can do a lot of that at that time. Because I do it mainly because it's National Novel Writing Month, and so to watch movies and get creative prompts inspired by the stories in movies, and to read books and get creative prompts inspired by those books, that's valuable to hundreds of thousands of people participating in National Novel Writing Month, trying to write stories and novels. I give them a bunch of prompts to play with. So I might just settle for doing an entire month full of fiction and movies. And that way I can do I will try to do like a few of them in the theater, and I will try to do a few of them the trending new releases of the year kind of books. And I think that makes a certain amount of sense. We're at 46 minutes in, so I'm going to call it here. I got to work on a few things before I call it a night, and then tomorrow, I should have, but I have yet to do a review of Incredibles 2, and then tomorrow is the prompts for Incredibles 2. And then I should be on track again to start next week with a board game and a product. So that's what I'm going to do now. I appreciate your participation this evening and hope to see you again tomorrow night. Hopefully my system's going to cooperate for now. All right. Take care. Have a good night. I should type faster, but I'm not going to. Good night. All right, so call it there. That's end.